So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Oxford Card Show. We are here with Bill Rogers, and
Hi.
I'm so excited to be able to ask you some questions because you've been with Pokémon since 2006.
That's correct.
And some of you guys will probably know some of the favorite kind of characters that you're here, but I'm going to start off first with, because you've voiced Brock,
Indeed.
as well as many Pokémon, but do they give you direction on the tone of, like, the Pokemon? Let's focus on the Pokemon characters you voice first, and then we'll move on to our friend Dr. Brock. But do they give you direction, say, like with Lucario? Like, ooh, Lucario's sad, Lucario's angry. Do you have to do many different versions of the Lucario voice in one kind of filming?
Well, so the way it works with Pokemon specifically is that it's an anime. So it starts off in Japan and then it comes to America, and we dub it into English. So we have two different styles.
That's
he was
my
very
daughter.
upset. He was like, "That's it." Our daughter, sorry, she's very upset. She's like, "I don't want to know about the process. Don't pull back the
Mom
curtain."
puts me in front of Pokemon already.
But so there's two different styles of voice acting for animation. One is dubbing, which is what we do with Pokemon, and then another thing is called prelay, where we record first. So I'd also worked on the Transformers War for Cybertron series on Netflix, and with that, we went in and we recorded, and then the animators made the animation based on our performances. I've also worked on a couple different franchises like that, but Pokemon is very specifically dubbed from Japanese. So when we get it, it's already done in Japan, and then we have to basically perform an English language version of the show.
Yeah.
So we have to keep in the style of what's going on, but we're under the constraints of what's already animated. So when you see Brock sad, you kind of know he is, but yeah, I will absolutely. Lisa Ortiz has been our director for years, and she's very good at getting subtleties and nuances in performances. It's like Brock is very upset right now. How upset should he be is something that the director will steer us in the direction of. And it's the same with the creatures as well, because a lot of people are like, I don't understand when you record on Pokemon, like if you're the voice of Sableye, is it just Sableye, and that's it, right? It's just you could just record that and just drop it in everything. But no, sometimes he's sad, sometimes he's happy, sometimes he's devious, and so we have a lot of different sounds for that. And so every time you hear a Pokemon reaction in the show, we've recorded every single one. It's not like they're copying and pasting. So that's great for us because we continue to work. And especially because about 2 years ago, we started up with Pokemon Horizons, the new series. And so Ash won the World Tournament.
Spoilers.
If you haven't seen it, it's been 2 years. Catch up, everybody. But he did one last adventure with Ash, Misty, and Brock. We had like an 11-episode run where we'd kind of just met up with old friends and then said our goodbyes. And when the new series started, I'm still the voice. I voice over 70 different creatures in the show. So they were like, well, now with Freed and Roy and Liko, and they're the Team Volt Tacklers, they've got their flying airship, and you've got Metagross and Elekid and Muck and Nosepass, and those are all Pokemon that I voice, so I'm in the show. And then it's like, oh, there's a Sudowoodo in this episode, or oh, here's another Sableye, or we had one episode where we had Galarian Weezing, and there was a whole fleet of them. There was just dozens of them. They pissed off a bunch of Galarian Weezings, and they were all attacking, so I had to do each one of those as well.
Each individual voice. Oh.
And it's weird because, so when I took over in 2006, I'd taken over as the voice of Coughing and Wheezing, because I didn't originate the original 150. When I came in, we were in Battle Frontier. So when we were doing stuff as we were going along, they were like, okay, for the original 150, I've taken over for Kadabra and Alakazam and Coughing and Wheezing and Magnemite and Magneton. And so when Magnezone was introduced years later, they were like, hey, where do we go with this? And so that was a voice I got to create. So I got to do that, create the voice for Magnezone, whereas I was doing a sound-alike for Magnemite and Magneton. And it was the same thing with coughing and wheezing. It was sound alike, but then when they were like, well, it's Galarian wheezing, so we need to do something a little different. And it's unfortunate Mark Thompson couldn't be with us this weekend. He was going to be a guest here as well, because he's another one that does a lot of creatures in the show. And he was the voice of Farfetch'd, but then when they did Surfetch'd, he did a different thing. And so he went from like Farfetch'd to like Farfetch'd. He's got like a very crusty sound to him. And so then Lisa was like, well, we have wheezing. It's just wheezing, but it was like, what is he going to sound like when he's got a stovetop hat and looks very like a very stodgy old man, very angry. So that became wheezing. So he just became very angry all the time. He's just kind of floating around, being very upset about everything in general. And of course, they run into a nest of them, so it's just a bunch of wheezing. They're all like just really, really angry at the team. So yeah, it's always an adventure. And over the 20 years that I've worked on the show, as I said, I've voiced 70 different creatures, and sometimes it's like, oh, there's a Pineco. It's, it drops out of the tree and explodes, and that's the end of it. But then I've gone through arcs with Chimchar and Monferno and Infernape, where we've gone through the evolutionary chain of it, hundreds of episodes through that story arc, and so some of them more often than others.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Thank you. And there's a few questions I have building up on that.
Sorry.
But no, you're good. It's brilliant, because with thinking of the wheezing example and then adapting for Galarian wheezing, what is that process like for you in the booth of exploring those voices? Is it you and Lisa working really closely together in trying out and exploring from a creative standpoint, like what it sounds like? How long did it take you to find that grumpy old man voice for Galarian wheezing?
Well, we have to work pretty quickly with the projects. I go on for a couple hours each week to work on the show, so we try to get everything done that we can at that point. Sometimes I have to go in multiple times, but with that, I think we nailed it down probably within the first hour of working on it. We were like, okay, this is where he's going to go, and this is what we're going to do with it. One of the more recent ones that was a little tricky for me was Garganackle. And I just was like, I don't know what to do, because I'm so many large Pokemon. And I was like, I want him to sound like slightly different. And we were looking at him and working on him, and we realized that he's just this giant salt lick Pokemon. He's just a tower of salt blocks. Because, I mean, come on, there's over 1,000 Pokemon. We're starting to run out of ideas.
We have keys, now we have salt licks.
We have keys, we have ice cream cones, we have gears, we have a giant salt lick. It's, bear with us. But yeah, with that, what Lisa was finally like, she's like, can you do something that's a little more, it's got to be slow, because he moves very, very slowly. And she's like, it's almost like he's like tectonic plates just kind of slowly sliding along. I was like, ooh, that's a really good idea. So I did a thing where my jaw was kind of tight and do like and it's very slow and methodical, and it just sounds like plates sliding on other plates. So he's very slow moving, and he never does any kind of fast attack. Garganackle does quick attack. I don't know how I would do that, because we've already established that he moves at a snail's pace. But yeah, it's a process, and yeah, I'm grateful to the directors that I work with as much as I am. I can't take all the credit for myself. It really is a collaborative process. There is another director that I work with, because we have multiple directors on the show, Felicia Angeal, who's another voice actress. And when I did my first session with her, she was like, well, you know what you're doing. And I'm like, yeah, but let's work together.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful process, because she respects all the years that we've been working on things. But at the same time, every once in a while she's like, well, why don't you try this? And I'm like, oh, brilliant. So it's really great to work with a lot of variety of directors on numbers of projects outside of Pokemon as well. Because if you get a really good creative flow, like, it really, really becomes a beautiful marriage of creativity.
I imagine that trust is a huge part of that process as well, and like
Oh, yeah.
giving into that. Okay, I'm going to go slow, like with the Garganackle. Building off on top of that, because you are also the voice of Brock in those episodes where you were Brock and say Sudowoodo, which I love the fact that you voiced one of his partner Pokemon as well. In the session in the booth, would you swap between doing Brock, or would like one shift a week be like, okay, I'm going to be focusing on Brock's lines today, and then I'll come in for Sudowoodo and Lucario for the following one?
So with those, with any sessions where I'm humans, which I haven't done since Brock left, it's mostly been Pokemon. Every once in a while, there's like oh no, look out, there's something, blah, 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 blah. There'll be like a random civilian in a crowd or something. But with Brock, when we would do that, is always take care of all the Brock stuff first, because the creature stuff is a lot more grating on the voice. And I do apologize too if I sound a little froggy. It took 24 hours to get out here. I landed yesterday, and I've just been kind of getting over just trying to get my voice back to a good place. But yeah, so we'd do all the Brock stuff first, and then we'd go back in and do passes of other things. So there would be a lot of times where Brock, it would be Brock and Sudowoodo and Krogunk all in the same scene. And I just take care of all the Brock stuff first, then go back in and do a pass of Sudowoodo and then do a pass of Krogunk, because Krogunk's the more challenging of because Sudowoodo is pretty easy to do, but Krogunk is a little more difficult. And so Brock would get really excited, and then Krogunk would punch him out. So I'd have to. Basically, I joke around and I say I beat myself up in the booth. So, but yeah, I would do all the Brock lines first, and then we go back and do the Pokemon passes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Because I imagine that would, that difficulty of changing from one to another to then getting in the headspace, I suppose, of Brock, which is a very interesting place, I can imagine, over the years. Our friend Brock has developed, I think from the nostalgia point of view, I think as someone who watched the anime of seeing Ash go on his journey and Brock leave, but then return, specifically I have to think of Alola, and obviously at the last few episodes, like you mentioned, that was quite nostalgic for us as viewers. How was it for you returning and being able to return to Brock? I know you've played him in the movies and stuff as well.
Sure.
But from the anime point of view.
Well, for me, it's like it was always a thrill when Brock would make an appearance, because it was like old home week. I'm like, okay, cool, we get to bring Brock back into the show. I continuously worked through the show because I was always doing creature work. But yeah, there were whole story arcs where it was like, well, there's no Brock in this, but then Brock will show up for like a 3-episode arc. One of my favorites was when we did the Alolan arc, because actually a good friend of mine, Mark Swint, was the voice of Kiawe, and I knew him when he was just a young aspiring voice actor. He's like, I'm going to be a voice actor one day, and I'm like, keep at it, kid.
Yeah.
And he kept at it, and then he was booking things, and then he auditioned for Kiawe, and he booked Kiawe. He's like, I'm Kiawe. And he did that through the Sun and Moon arc, and then Brock showed up, and of all things, Brock gets to challenge Kiawe. And I was like, all right, kid, learn from the master. He's like, all right, old man, you come in and do your victory lap. It's fine. We'll have a battle. And we didn't know how the episode was going to turn out. And so I recorded before him, and when Brock beat Kiawe, I was like, I said to Lisa, I'm like, well, just tell Mark that the old guys still got it, you know. but it was especially fun because Kiawe is always so hot-blooded and everything, and we finally got to see like swole Brock, because like Kiawe's always running around shirtless, and he's like, I'm gonna flaming passion. And so then Brock like rips off his shirt as well, and it's that old character model from the original game where he's standing like, he's like all buff, and it's like Brock never looked like that in the show, but he finally got the chance to look like a badass. So I really did appreciate that.
What was in the Alola water? That's what I gotta ask.
I don't know what's going on. There's Alola waters. It's a swolola. I don't know.
And continuing on the Brock theme, Brock has many characteristics that are endearing or sometimes can be romantic in nature, one might say. I'm trying to be polite here for Brock. But what is one quality that you admire about Brock? Because he has shown, as silly as he can be, for lack of a better phrase, there are some really nice things about him. What do you admire about Brock?
Well, honestly, with my journey with Brock, and I will take a moment to give credit where credit is due. The original voice of Brock, Eric Stewart, did a great job creating the voice of Brock. And when I took over in the show, it was big shoes to fill. But I also feel like I lucked out in the fact that the way the writing of the show went, when he first came onto the show, I felt like he was a lot of comedic beats.
Yeah.
There was a lot of, they'd be wandering around from the town and Brock would be making food, and then Nurse Joy or Officer Jenny would walk by. Brock would freak out. Misty would carry him away by his ear. And that's the way it went for a while. And then he disappeared for a while, and they replaced him with Tracy, and that didn't go well, I guess, in Japan, because they brought him back. And then when I took over, I was like, okay, this is the character. But I feel like, especially with the Diamond and Pearl arc, they did a thing that hadn't been done before. Because Brock is either, hey, Ash, let's go on a Pokemon adventure, and then, Nurse Joy! And he gets really excited. But there was the Bishonen Brock, as I like to call him, where, like, all of a sudden there'll be flowers and pastels in the background, and then he suddenly gets very emotional. Nurse Joy, I need to go with you on a Pokemon date. And I was like, oh, cool, he's got a new level now.
Yeah.
So they added a new facet to Brock, and it was fun finding that, because I was like, it should still be a bit comedic, but I wanted to be schmaltzy and a little romantic, and and that. And then also at one point, with Kenny and Dawn, there was a little thing going on with the two of them, and he became like the big brother character. He's like, if you believe in your heart, follow what you're gonna do. And the man who fails at everything with trying to woo women is giving out advice, but in a very lovingly an older brother way. And also they developed more of the Doc Brock aspect of him, where he was like, I'm gonna go study and become a Pokemon doctor.
Yeah.
And so I appreciated that. Like, he became more academic, he became more fatherly, he just became more of a caregiver. And I was really happy, because I was like, this character is a great joke, but when you have all those years to work on him and flesh him out, there's just so much more that you can do with it.
Yeah, that depth, I really agree with the doctor aspect, that giving that direction is fun, and seeing that come back in Alola. So Brock's team, we already mentioned your Sudowoodo as well as the voice of that, but apart from Brock's team, we love Brock's team, but what would Bill's Pokemon team look like? Would art mirror reality in the sense? Would you go for any of Brock's team, or are you a fan of different Pokemon than he collected?
When I do play the Pokemon games, there's a first of all, people always ask, they're like, so you're the voices in the games, and I'm like, have you played a Pokemon game? Because in the show, if Magnemite shows up, it's and if you hear it in the game, it's like, and I'm like, no, that's not me. That's an electronic noise. So no, I'm not in the Pokemon games. Those are just electronic beeps and whirs, and like, instead of it's like, and I'm like, that's definitely, I mean, I can make that noise, but that wasn't me in the game.
Yeah.
That was definitely somebody hitting a button on a synthesizer and like kind of moving the frequencies. So I'm not the voices in the game, but the cool thing about it is that whenever I play a Pokemon game, I'm like, well, let me see if I can find my creatures and build a team. And so I always, if I can get my hands on a Chimchar, Monferno, and Fernape, like, that's a really great flame type. And like so I'll also want to have like a Magnemite or a Magneton in my team. Lucario is an amazing fighting type. Yeah. Krogunk is still great because he's a good poison type. Sudowoodo is very hard to put in your team because you're not really going to get very far with that. But there are enough powerhouse creatures that I can build a team I have 70 different creatures to choose from. I just have to go out and find them, which was the problem when I was playing Diamond and Pearl. I got to a point where it was like, oh, over by this pond you can find Krogunks, and I was just like, I'm gonna just keep catching Krogunks. And so I would when I would trade with friends, I called myself Brock in the game. So when I would do a Pokemon trade, they'd be like, you got Brock's Krogunk. So people really enjoyed that, but I just spent so much time wandering around in that marsh, just capturing as many Krogunks as I could. So it slowed me down a bit.
Fair. Did you get any shiny Krogunk? Would you happen to be shiny chaining at that point? Or?
I am not good at finding shinies.
Oh.
Yeah. And I also used to play Pokemon Go for I played for the first year or two until it broke my phone. At one point I was just my phone would overheat while I was playing. I'm like, I gotta stop playing this now. But what I would also do is I would capture creatures. And again, I called myself Brock in that. And you could drop them at local gyms. So you go to your local Tesco or something like that, and they have a Pokemon stop. You can put a Pokemon there. So I'd be like, hey, Brock's Krogunk is at this gym. And so
little do they know.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, who's calling himself Brock?
Yeah. And keeping on the video game thread, we'll shift very quickly before we open it up to some audience questions.
Sure.
But the King of Hyrule, as a Legend of Zelda player, what a cool part to have on your IMDb. What is the process because you mentioned the process of recording for Pokemon anime in the beginning. Is it different with the video game then, where they do base it off your performance?
With some games, and Legend of Zelda is a series that comes out of Japan, but with some games we do have to do kind of the dubbing thing.
Yeah.
Like when I did Street Fighter, I was the voice of Urien, and it wasn't so much a matching lip flap. It was like if Urien's throwing an attack and he's shouting an attack, we had to make sure that it's called a waveform, is the audio file. We had to make sure that the waveform was exactly the same length, so that when you're hitting the attack button, it's not going shorter than the attack or going longer. It has to be this exact length. So it's a different style of dubbing. Instead of worrying about lip flap, it's does this fit in this space? But with Breath of the Wild, we were given more leeway. Nintendo was really great while they were developing the game. They were very conscious of developing the US version separate from the Japanese version, and the fact that it's all still the same game, but giving us more leeway of how we're gonna dub and how we're gonna, change the dialogue and make it fit. And it was really a labor of love because that game took about a year to make. Wow. Every couple months they'd be like, we have to have you back in. We've changed some lines. They've added some scenes. When I worked on it initially, there's that famous scene where it's a flashback where the king is berating his daughter to try to push her forward. He was a horrible dad, I'm sorry. He just wanted to save Hyrule. It wasn't like he hated his daughter, he loved her. He just didn't want the kingdom to collapse. But in that scene, when we first recorded, we were doing a rough pass of the dialogue, and here's this thing that looks like it's like King Rome made out of a block of gray clay, kind of gliding across the screen. It's like, he's gonna be here, and then he's gonna talk, and then he's going to walk away. And then when we went in for later passes, it was further animated. Yeah. So it was really beautiful watching the process come together and be more and more animated. And so that was neat. So that was more like working on Prelay. And it was really wild watching that game develop as it went along. And they were very, very, the Nintendo group wanted to get it right, because this was the first time that Zelda game had ever been voiced, outside of Link running around going so we didn't have that anymore, and so that was wild. It was just such an experience, and for me, actually, even auditioning for it, I knew it was a Nintendo project when I read for it, but I was like, oh, it's another Fire Emblem game, because they have Archer, Barbarian, King. I was like, okay, it's just gonna be. I didn't know when I was reading for Barbarian that it was Daruk and Archer was Rivali and the King was the King of Hyrule. I was like, this is going to be another RPG. Yeah. And nothing wrong with the Fire Emblem games. I'd love to be in a Fire Emblem game. I haven't yet, but that's what I thought it was when I first read on it. And we went through a lot of callbacks on that. A callback is when you give the initial audition and then they pare it down to like, well, we have like a dozen people out of the 500 that read on this. We're going to have you guys all come back in this week and read on it, and then we'll pare it down again. And I think I went through like 2 or 3 callbacks on that.
Wow.
And at first, they had me do a callback for the barbarian, but then they were like, we also like your king. And then when they did the next callback, they were like, we're really focused on the king. We've narrowed it down to 3 people, and so we did a little bit more with it. And Jamie Mortellaro, who was the director on the game, was just very, very insightful even with the auditions, where he was like, let's try this, let's try that. So it was like working on a session when I was doing the auditions with him. And then they finally cast me. Yeah. And when I went in the first day to record, Jamie's in the studio, and there's 2 Nintendo reps there. And he's
no pressure.
He's like, hey, these are our Nintendo reps. This is Bill. And I was like, hey guys, very nice to meet you. And he's like, so just wanted to let you know what we're working on. You've got the role of the king. We are doing the first fully voiced Zelda game. And I was just like, oh, okay. Because I was like, okay, there's already been Fire Emblem games, but this is the first fully voiced Zelda game. And as a kid, because I'm older, I played on the NES. I played the Zelda games back in the day on the systems back then, and so it's been a part of my life as well, a part of my childhood. Yeah. So I was like, this is a big deal. These are big shoes to fill. This is a big job. And so after that, they were like, cool. So we're gonna get you in the booth, and we'll get the engineers to set you all up with everything. And I was like, okay. And I walked out, and Jamie walked out. He's like, are you all right, buddy? And I'm like, I just need a minute. I need to kind of absorb this. And the funniest thing about it was we did all of that, and then the very first session that we recorded for was there's a show in Los Angeles. They don't do it anymore, but before, like, COVID kind of killed it off, but E3 was a thing. The Electronics Entertainment Expo was in Los Angeles every year, and that's where they'd showcase games. And that year, they were going to show the demo, and it was when they were still developing it as a Wii U game. I think they kind of knew that they were going to also make it like the Switch, but they hadn't announced the Switch yet. But they did have the early demo on Wii U there. And so for that, when I went to E3, I was like, I gotta try this. And I waited online for like 2 hours with all the other fans. I'm like, I just gotta play the game. Yeah. And I went in and I got to play it. But the amusing thing is that first day when we recorded for the E3 demo, I go in and they're like, well, this is what we have so far. And they show, for people who have played Breath of the Wild, that opening with Patricia's lovely opening monologue where she's like, Link, open your eyes, you must save Hyrule. And she's got this beautiful speech to Link. And then when you walk around the demo, you just see the old man. And every time you walk over to the old man, it's, oh. So my very first session on Breath of the Wild was in the booth for an hour going, okay, jovial laugh. Okay, angry grunt. Surprised, oh. And so for the first hour, after being told, you're going to be in this massive franchise, my first hour was, So when I went and played the demo, I was with my roommate at the time, was with me at E3, and he's a huge Zelda fan. And I'm sitting there we're at the 2 Wii U stations, and I'm like looking over to see like what his reaction is when he's meeting the old man. And it's like, well, you must get the paraglider, but you've got to go through these shrines. And I'm like, it's pretty cool, huh? And he's like, oh yeah, this is great. Like, he has no idea.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you sign an NDA? So he didn't know.
I signed an NDA, so I couldn't say anything. He couldn't figure it out. because it was all just,
Yeah.
And of course now, because he's such a huge Zelda fan, he's pre-ordered the Switch, and the game is coming in. And when the game comes out, we're allowed to announce.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I don't want to like blindside the poor bastard, because on top of everything else, he ordered from Best Buy, and they were like, sorry, you were supposed to have it to you for Friday, but you're not getting it till Monday.
No.
And he's like, man, I really want to play Zelda. And so I, that day when the game came out, I was like, I knocked on his door, and he's like, hey, what's up? I'm like, hey, I'm sorry that your Switch isn't coming until Monday. Just so you know, before you find out on the internet, I'm the king. And he looks at me like I've got 5 heads. He's like, what is wrong with you? What do you mean? I'm like, no, I'm the voice of the king of Hyrule. And he's like, shut up! Get out of here! How is that possible? I'm like, because I'm very good at keeping NDA.
Yeah.
So you didn't know, but I didn't want you to go online and be like,
You didn't say anything. Yeah.
the hell? So I was like, I wanted to tell you first. So yeah, and then he finally got the game. I didn't get a Switch till like a year later, because one of the great perks of being a voice actor is that you're always broke. So it's not as glamorous as it seems. But yeah, so I watched him play the first time, and then I was like, all right, and I got my Switch. And for the longest time, it was the only game I had on the Switch. I have more now, but it took me a little while. But yeah, I was like, all right, gonna play through this.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's...
There you are.
And that's that story. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, amazing. Thank you so much, Bill.
Absolutely.
I don't know how much time we have before Mary. I didn't see if Mary popped in.
I don't know. Mary's like,
Mary-
screw it. I'm gonna go have waffles.
Yeah,
I don't know.
fair play. Do you guys have any questions for Bill? Yeah.
In the Pokemon film. Okay, so what happened was the Pokemon film came out right as we were in the transition. So you'll probably hear, especially if you look online, that Sean Schemmel, who's the voice of Goku, was the psychic Lucario in the Mystery of Mew movie. When we went through the studio transition, that movie already had come out, but then Smash Brothers for the Wii came out, and they were like, hey, can you sound like this? And I said, sure. So I ended up being Lucario in Smash Brothers on the Wii. And then Lucario started showing up in the show. And they were like, oh, there's Lucario. Hey, there's another Lucario. Hey, Ash has a Lucario. And so from that point forward, I was Lucario. And then Toshi's going to hate me for this. Toshi Fumiyoshida is a producer at Pokemon USA, and I always give him a rough time about this. I've gotten over it, it's not a problem. But I did it in Smash Brothers for the Wii, and then when Smash Brothers came out for the Wii U, I was still in New York, because Pokemon initially recorded in New York. Now they record in New York and LA. But Smash Brothers, in general, records 90% of their stuff in Los Angeles. And then every once in a while, they'll fly out, and they'll set up in a studio, and they're like, we need to get the Pokemon people to do their voices for the game. But when they were in LA recording, at one point they were talking to Sean Schemmel, and Sean's like, oh, I'm the voice of Lucario. And they were like, oh, well then get in the booth.
Yeah.
And he did it. And I had been in the Wii version, and I was like, well, any day now they're going to call me, because I know they're making it for the Wii U.
Yeah.
And then the game got announced, and they started releasing materials for it, and I called up Toshi. And I said, hey, what's going on with Lucario? He's like, what? What do you mean, Lucario? We got that already recorded. Sean came in and recorded months ago. I was like, you are aware that I've been voicing Lucario for like the last, I don't know, at that point, like 5 years. And he was like, oh, yeah, well, I mean, I know he was in the movie, and it's that Pokemon. I'm like, okay, but I was also Lucario in the Wii version, which was also that It's fine. So, yes, I share Lucario with Sean. So if you see like Funko Pops that are signed by both of us online, don't be alarmed. There are 2 Lucarios out there. But then again, there's also multiple Gokus, so anything's possible. But yeah, with the exception of Mystery of Mew and the Wii Smash Brothers, the Wii U Smash Brothers, you can hear me as Lucario, so. Yes? My favorite line is Brock. Again, I apologize because I'm a little hoarse today, but let me see if I can do it. So the thing is that normally when Ash is working, when Brock is training with Ash, he'll just be in a normal speaking tone like this. But then if Nurse Joy or Officer Jenny shows up, Nurse Joy, Officer Jenny, I can't decide. And it sounds really bad right now because it sounds like Brock has bronchitis. But I do promise it's because travel has destroyed my voice. Which is why you'll also see on the little form with autographs, it's like, we're not doing voices, can't do voices, Bill can't speak. But that's the best I could do. I'm sorry, sir.
And lastly, are you Team Nurse Joy?
Mary, don't run away.
No, we're finishing.
Okay.
Team Nurse Joy or Team Officer Jenny? Hard-hitting question.
Nurse Joy, Officer Jenny, I can't decide.
Hey!
Hey!
Oh, thank you so much, Bill.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.